he is a supporter of Israel, and I mean, I don't have anything else to say. He is. It's just, that, again, we're down to facts, and that's the facts. Guy, do you want to address that, Ryan?
Everyone, guys, keep it down, be respectful. Next question.
Yes, so the question is for all timers. Is there any reason why Obama or Romney make no mention of the plight of the Palestinian people as an effect of Zionist occupation and the foreign policy?
I'll start. Sure, because they were in Florida. And as you saw somewhat from the discussions today, Israel is kind of a bellwether issue for a lot of Americans. The fact is, of course, we are allied with Israel. We're strongly allied with Israel for a very long time. Obama has been a great supporter of Israel, all the other stuff, whatever. Obama's a supporter of Israel. Every president of the United States is a supporter of Israel. What's the difference? You've got a right-wing Israeli government right now that basically uses the same campaign advisors as the Republican Party in America. Okay? Netanyahu is not exactly doing what he can to get Obama re-elected president of the United States. It's simply who you're aligned with. Okay? We've got a president from somewhat to the left in America, and a president from the right in Israel. They don't necessarily mesh in real. As far as Obama snubbing Netanyahu, whatever. There's been certainly there were issues with the government of Israel with Obama. There were a couple of things. They snubbed the Vice President Biden when he was there visiting Israel. They snubbed Obama when Netanyahu came to the United States. So they're playing a little game. But everybody's a strong supporter of Israel. The question comes down to, do you support the right party in Israel, or do you support the moderate, the Kadima party, the Labour Party in Israel? As far as the Palestinians, it's a tragedy. But right now, there's not a lot of, in America, there's not a huge Palestinian constituency. And there is a much greater, especially in swing states, pro-Israeli contingent. So they do get short shrift in America. And so I guess the question becomes, which American president would be more credible around the world with regard to his Middle East policy, and which one would be more likely to support a solution that would benefit both Israel and the Palestinians? And I think that answers it.
I reject the premise of the gentleman's question. The word Zionist occupation, I reject the premise of that question entirely. I am a Jew. I love the state of Israel. And I'm proud of the state of Israel. The state of Israel is a light unto the Middle East. Let's talk about the occupation of Gaza. Let's talk about Hamas, which has been in charge of Gaza since 2005. Israel, okay, in Hamas, they kill gay people. They murder people, okay? They cut off people's heads if you disagree with them. If you disagree with Hamas, they cut your head off. Excuse me, I'm still talking. All right, Israel is the only country in the Middle East that respects the rights, fully respects the rights of religious minorities. All right, ask the Coptic Christians in Egypt. They're not doing very well. Israel respects the rights of religious minorities 100%. Israel respects the rights of women. Women are treated equally, all right, in Israel. Women, gay people have been able to serve in the Israeli Defense Forces since 1993, way before Obama repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So I'm quite proud of Israel. I feel bad for the Palestinian people. They have suffered, and we should feel bad when any people are suffering, as they have. But I reject the premise of that question, and I'm quite frankly offended by it. I believe we should support Israel. I believe Israel is our greatest ally in the Middle East. It's a democracy. It's the only country in the Middle East that respects basic human rights. They share our values. Israel shares American values, and we ought to support them 110%.
Just for the record,
let's move on.
okay, I understand some of us have strong opinions concerning the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, but as you can see in the flyer that was posted, this is about the election, not about their conflict. So please keep the questions relevant, okay?
This is a question for Professor Rosen. So you're talking about, Iran and the threat of nuclear weapons, right? So just a little further on that topic. Basically, what's Mitt Romney going to do differently than Obama? Is he going to invade Iran? Is he going to invade Syria? Exactly what is he different? And Bush didn't visit Israel until his 7th year of his presidency, so that's a little context there. But back to the question.
The question was, what is Mitt Romney going to do differently than Barack Obama? The answer is I don't know. He hasn't been clear. I'll criticize Romney. Romney's not been clear on a lot of things. All I do know is I know Obama's track record. I'm not happy with Obama's track record on Israel. All right? He has not been, he said we have to put some daylight between us and Israel. All right? Those were his words. All right? He has snubbed the Prime Minister of Israel several times, once when he was at the White House, the other time when he was at the UN. So I don't think Obama has really been the most fervent supporter, the most fervent ally of Israel that we've seen. He's certainly put a little bit of distance between the two countries. Will Romney do better? I hope so. But to answer your question, honestly, what will Romney do differently? I hope he'll take a tougher stand with Iran. I hope he'll be willing to use military action as a last resort if that's necessary to stop Iran. I don't think we should make Israel have to do it. I think Iran getting a nuclear bomb. Let me be clear about that. I'm an American citizen. All right. Iran getting a nuclear bomb is not just a threat to Israel. Let's be clear about that. It's a threat to the national security of the United States. It's a threat to us. We don't want lunatics running around with nuclear weapons. Simple as that. So I hope we'll take a tough stand.
Yes, go ahead.
Sure. Again, it's an important question, not to just slough off what will Romney do differently. You can criticize Obama, but there is a question, is Romney going to do anything better? Sure, it would be wonderful if Iran were a democracy that weren't pursuing nuclear weapons and were aligned with the United States and with Israel. That's not the case. So what's Romney going to do that Obama hasn't done to make that the case, other than wish it away, other than attack without a potential solution there? He doesn't offer anything that's better other than that Obama has worked diplomatically. Now, as far as daylight between the United States and Israel, every American president is a huge supporter of Israel. And forgive me, if you think otherwise, you're mistaken. Okay? But am I electing a president, a prime minister of Israel right now? No, I'm electing the president of the United States. And the fact is, I want the president of the United States to first and foremost advance the interests of the United States of America, which, fortunately, for those of us who have a Jewish heritage, means that we will almost all the time be strictly aligned with Israel. But in times where the interests of Israel might diverge from the interests of the United States, I want the president of the United States to put the United States first. And that, I think, the daylight argument is perfectly reasonable. And I expect that just about everybody in this room would also want the United States to put the United States first rather than Israel first. So we're not electing the Israeli prime minister right now.
Okay, I just find it somewhat ironic, this is for Professor Rosen, when you're speaking of Israel and their stance on homosexuality and their stance on women's rights. So this, I feel like, is going back to this debate and what's going on. I don't think we need to question what the Tea Partyists and the right-wing stance is on women's rights and on gay rights. I want to know why it would be an intelligent decision to elect Romney right now when those listen to what does that do to America? What does that further America not taking away rights of women, putting us back, taking away reproductive rights, and also not having marriage equality? I want to know what the benefit of that is, considering that we are a society that is supposed to be based on free religion. We are not a one-religion society. We have a dominance. Yes, my question is, but I was just I wanted to say that I didn't want to hear I don't want to hear about religion. I want to know, as an economy and for a country, what are those benefits? Why would we support that?
Why? Could you just?
She was saying, why would we support someone who seems to be anti-women's
Okay.
rights and gay
Okay.
rights when those are clearly coming from a religious place and we're not a religious country?
Right. I don't believe Mitt Romney to be anti-women. Let's take that part of the argument. He's anti-women because we're not giving enough law students free birth control. We've got to give free birth control. We've got to give free birth control to law students. That makes him anti-women because he's not in favor of free contraceptives. And I'm not talking about when it's medically necessary. If it's medically necessary, then of course a woman, a doctor, should provide her with birth control if it's medically necessary. But this whole idea, this whole notion of a war on women in the United States because Mitt Romney doesn't support free birth control, I think is just absurd. If you want to talk about a war on women, Barack Obama should have gone around the Middle East instead of going on this apology tour. He should have gone on the lecture circuit and started talking about, hey, when a little girl wants to go to school, you don't throw acid in her face. You don't throw acid in her face when she wants to go to school. All right? If a woman wants to drive, if a woman wants to be able to have a driver's license in Saudi Arabia, she should be able to have that. All right? We should treat people equally over there. So I think he would have been better spending his time going on a tour of the Middle East, pointing out the real war on women, because that's where there is a real war on women. Ask Malala, the young girl, 14-year-old girl who was just shot in the face on a school bus because she had the audacity, she had the nerve, this young girl had the audacity to want to go to school. So I just kind of find it ironic that we're talking about a war on women here in the United States because of not enough free birth control when little girls are getting shot and they're getting acid thrown in their faces in some countries.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Okay, so first of all, America is not the police force of the world. And while I'm sure we've made our stance very clear to foreign countries that, we think they should be treating women equally, every single time some person in another country does something terrible to women, we're not going to rain down on them. That's not our job, especially not when we are not treating women equally in this country right now. Women still are not being paid equal to men. And when Obama and Romney were both asked about this, Obama pointed out that he's always been pro-paying women the same as their male counterparts doing the same job. He pointed out that he signed the Lilly Ledbetter Act, almost the first thing he signed? Yeah. First law he signed. Meanwhile, Romney said that treating women equally would involve letting them go home early to cook dinner for their families. So I don't really think Romney's quite on the level here with treating women equally in this discourse. And frankly, and Obama is. It's just, all right, the birth control issue. Romney wants individual companies to be able to say whether or not women can get free birth control from their health insurance. As I'm sure a lot of women here know, there's a lot of reasons to take birth control that have nothing to do with having premarital sex. It's a treatment for a variety of things like polycystic ovarian syndrome, you guys can look it up, hormonal issues, pain. These are things that women take birth control for reasons other than being promiscuous. And frankly, you shouldn't have to go to your healthcare insurance provider or your company and say, hey, I need this pill for other reasons. That's not their business, and it should never be their business. Another thing is that in countries where they provide birth control as easily accessible to women, abortion rates are lower than they are in America, even though in America we make it really, really difficult to get an abortion. So frankly, these are the sort of things that a government really should be looking towards to providing for women, to providing for our future, and to providing for the basic health of the country. These are all issues where Romney's coming down on the side of restricting women's rights and making it more difficult for women, and Obama's constantly saying, no, women should be equal to men. Women should be able to make these decisions for their own bodies. And frankly, I don't see how that can be any more clear. I know, okay. Yeah.
Back and forth.
Yeah, so this question is addressed both sides. So in America, the past 30 years, there has been a radical right-wing shift in all aspects of society, and that includes, the legislative and the echelons of government and whatnot. Yeah.
She really likes your questions.
My bad. Yeah, so, and Obama right now, and the Democrats, they are where the Republicans and where Ronald Reagan was in the 80s. But at the same time, you have Romney, who's so far towards, past Ronald Reagan, right? In relation to like what he wants. And Obama at the same time has, enacted things like the NDAA crushing, civil rights within America or whatever was left of them. He has deported, close to a million people. Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, essentially, what is the fundamental difference, between Obama and Romney when they are both like more to the right wing on a lot of things than on a lot of issues than anything?
Have they both shifted to the right? You're comparing Obama to Reagan. I think David Leventhal and I would both agree that Obama and Reagan are pretty different. I think that's something we could probably both agree on. So I don't
agree with the premise of that question.
In relation to foreign policy and domestic policy, in terms of the drug war,
you raised a lot of issues. So I'll just address one point. You brought up NDAA. How many of you guys have heard of NDAA? Just curious. Very few. You should look it up. The National Defense Authorization Act. President Obama signed it on New Year's Eve in the dark of night. Nobody was looking, all right? This is the greatest assault on the Constitution that I'm aware of in my lifetime. It basically says that a United States citizen can be taken out from their home, locked up, without trial, and without a lawyer, and held for as long as the government wants if they say that you're a terrorist. All right, this is the greatest assault, and Obama's a former constitutional law professor, so I would think he would know better than signing a law like that. But yet, nobody's heard about that law, nobody's talking about it. If George Bush had signed such a law, I feel that... NDAA has gone beyond what the Patriot Act ever did. And I do feel that the left wing is giving Obama a pass on NDAA. They're not even I've hardly heard any criticism of his signature on that law. The worst assault on the Constitution in my lifetime that I can remember, and I do feel like the left has given him a pass. Now, unfortunately, Romney said, hey, it's a great law, I like it too. I'll go along with it. So, on that issue, they both stink.
Okay, the premise of your question is absolutely accurate. The problem is, I agree with, to some extent, with something that Professor Rosen said before. He said something like, I forget the term he used, he hates both candidates or something like that. The fact is, though, as far as I'm concerned, those of you in my class know this, this country needs a liberal running for president. And right now, you've got a moderate, let's leave it at that, and you've got an extreme conservative. So, is Obama the liberal that I want it to be? No. But he's sure as hell a lot less scary than Romney is on all these issues. We do need somebody, basically, to start moving this country back to the left so that this country is run again for the people of this country rather than for the 1%. The last 30 years in this country, capital, money, people who make their money through their money, has been at war with labor, and capital is kicking the crap out of labor, which is why Americans, the working Americans, are doing so badly, and wealthy Americans are doing so spectacularly well. Why? There's nobody representing us as much as they should be. Why isn't Obama representing us more than he should be? Well, maybe it's what he believes. Maybe it's because when he took office, the financial companies very explicitly threatened him that if you try to enact regulations to protect the American public, we will give all of our money to Republicans and we will get Republicans elected into office. And it worked. In 2010, that's exactly what happened. What else happened? Unfortunately, the American public doesn't have his back. And we're having debates about things, some of which are very important, some of which are tangential issues. But the bottom line is, the people who need to be standing up and supporting a president of the United States when he supports them, rather than supporting oil companies or banks, are not there to do it. And to the extent that Obama might be inclined to be more liberal, the American public doesn't have his back. And he knows that there will be hundreds of millions of dollars worth of TV advertisements, and of course Fox News, will be trashing everything he does so that the American public will end up voting for the guy who's trying to take money out of their pockets, whatever's still left in there. We do need somebody more liberal. But Obama starts moving us back, is moving us back in that direction at least. Okay, you might ask yourself at this point in time, is it really good that we've got 4,000 something Americans right now who are sitting around wondering if they're going to have a death sentence because they had a fungus injected into their spine? This is America. We don't regulate food and drugs. We don't regulate pharmaceuticals. We don't regulate banks. Obama's not doing enough of that. But he's doing a hell of a lot more than Romney's ever going to do.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's your choice.
Guys. We have time for one more question, so please, whoever it is, make it a good one.
Sorry, you already went.
Yeah.
Alright, Lieutenant Rosen, if the economy is in its current condition, how do you justify Mitt Romney wanting to spend even more money on defense despite our failures in the wars in the past couple of years?
Mitt Romney should not be spent. I think we're spending enough on defense. I think we have an adequate military right now. So you're right on that one. I just want to go back to one thing that Professor Levengold said. This whole idea, we got to demonize rich people. Rich people are evil. Corporations are evil. You know, Margaret Thatcher once said the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money. You know, why is it greedy for Mitt Romney to want to make a lot of money, but it's not greedy for David Levengold to want to take away all that money? I don't quite understand. It's greedy to want to make a lot of money, but when the government comes along and says, you got to give us most of it. You earned it, but we're going to take it because we know what, we have better ideas about how to spend it, so we're going to take your money. That's not greedy. Why is it that liberals want consenting adults to be able to engage in every activity that they want except capitalism? Consenting adults can engage in any activity in this country, according to MSNBC, and the left, except capitalism, right? Because then you're greedy, and then you're selfish, and then we need the government to come in and take away the majority of what you earn. I think Americans should be able to keep the majority of what they earn, whether you're earning a small amount or a large amount. Sure, we should have a progressive tax code. I have no problem with that, but this whole notion of constantly demonizing corporations. You know why America is the strongest country in the world? Because we have the greatest economy in the world. We have the greatest corporations in the world. We have the most powerful economy in the world. That's why we can afford, going back to your question, 11 aircraft carriers, all right? It's not because of government projects. It's because of the private sector. It's because of these evil corporations, these horrible corporations that you all have cell phones, right? And your iPads and all the other contraptions that you have are created by these evil alien corporations that we all have to get rid of. So I'll just go back to Margaret Thatcher. The problem with socialism, eventually you're going to run out of somebody else's money.
Well, I guess if America has the greatest economy in the world, why are we looking to fire the president? That's the first thing I would say. Second thing is, I hate to say this, but you might have noticed that what Professor Rosen just attributed to my argument was nothing that I said and nothing that I believe in. It's the demonization of the wealthy. It's the people who are saying that the wealthy need to start paying tax rate like they have paid through most of the 20th century. Tax rates on people like Mitt Romney are at historic lows. Mitt Romney's answer is they need to be historically lower. That will somehow fix this country. George Bush tried that, it did not work. This country this is an example of how far to the right this country's moved, that this is the discussion we're having at a time when the tax rates on the fattest and wealthy are the lowest, basically historically in this country. The problem is Ronald Reagan, of course, who was a god in the Republican Party, right now could not run for president for the Republican Party. He'd be too liberal. So what you basically said about Reagan and Obama is basically right, to a large extent. It's not me, many commentators have noted that the last liberal president this country may have had was probably Richard Nixon. And that's not necessarily even at that point the case that I think of that.
Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you.